Hello dear students, again welcome back to your history class, and we are doing this last chapter, Middle East, Israeli-Palestine conflict from 1916 to 1993. So in the previous class we did about the Hussein-McMahon letter, we did about the background, and today we are going to do the Sykes-Picot agreement, okay, of 1916. So what was this Sykes, S-Y-K-E-S, Sykes-Picot agreement of 1916? So this agreement is also known as the Asia Minor Agreement, and this was a secret agreement which was signed between Great Britain, France and Russia. Tsarist Russia, T-S-A-R-I-S-T, Tsarist Russia. Why it is known as Tsarist Russia? Because before the Bolshevik Revolution, before the Russian Revolution, Russia was under the emperor, the Tsarist regime, the Tsarist rule. So this agreement, the Sykes-Picot agreement, was an agreement which was signed between Britain, France, and partial assent, approval. Partially it was approved by Tsarist Russia, and what was decided was division of Ottoman Empire. Ottoman Empire, the Turkish Empire, to divide Turkish Empire among the three powers after the First World War. Three powers, again Britain, France and Tsarist Russia. Okay, but again what was promised was Ottoman Empire, the Turkish Empire. Now before, it was promised that as Arabia was also part of the Ottoman Empire, this Arabia was before already promised to King Hussein. Now again, in this Sykes-Picot, it was agreed that Arabia would also be divided among the three powers. Okay, so when the Russian Revolution broke out, when the Bolshevik Revolution broke out in 1917, then this secret Sykes-Picot agreement was released and the whole world came to know about this. Okay, so it was a great humiliation, or let's say it was a great embarrassment for Britain. For the Arabs, it was dismayed, because the Arabs, they were very much unhappy with this when they heard about this Sykes-Picot, because Arabia was promised to Arabs. But again in this Sykes-Picot, Arabia, it was said that Arabia would be divided among Britain, France and Tsarist Russia. So Arabs were not happy and Turks were delighted. So this was about the Sykes-Picot agreement. So next we are going to do the Zionist movement. So the Jews, when they were chased from Palestine, they got dispersed all over the world. Though they were dispersed, but they had the feeling of nationalism. And they taught their children the language Hebrew, and they taught their children to worship their God, Jehovah. And also, whenever they used to meet, whenever there was a gathering, okay, the priest united all the Jews, okay, during marriage ceremony, during funerals, any kind of get together. Then, now, this way they had the feeling of nationalism. Now they wanted back their homeland in Palestine. So, the World Zionist movement was started by a person, a German professor. His name was Dr. Weizmann. He started this Zionist movement, and what was the demand? The demand for their homeland in Palestine. And these Jews, they were very, very rich. They were rich bankers, they were intellectuals, they were industrialists. And all these industrialist bankers, they joined this Zionist movement. Then, on the other side, when the First World War broke out, Britain was facing economic crisis. So what Britain needed was help, loan from the rich Jewish bankers. And in return, what was promised? That Jews will get back their homeland in Palestine. Okay, and this was written in what? This was in the Balfour Declaration. This was a declaration which was made by Prime Minister Balfour, okay, in the British Parliament, that if the Jews granted loans to Britain, then Britain would give back the homeland, Palestine, to the Jews. Again, this Balfour Declaration was highly contradictory. It was not matching with the Hussein-McMahon letter, because in the previous Hussein-McMahon letter, the British promised Arabia. Arabia meant even, because Hussein thought that Arabia meant even Palestine. Okay, so Hussein thought that Palestine would be given to King Hussein along with Arabia, but again here in the Balfour Declaration, it was mentioned that Palestine would be given to the Jews. So this was the main cause of conflict between the Arabs and the Jews, okay, over Palestine. Then after the First World War, what happened now? Slowly the Jews, they started migrating into Palestine. So the Jews were rich, they had money, they started buying lands from the Arabs. Okay, and because of this, there were a lot of communal rights between Arabs and the Jews. Clear? Then again, now the British wanted to settle this problem between the Arabs and the Jews and came up with a lot of different commissions like the King Crane Commission, the Haycraft Commission, but this did not work. It did not solve their problem. Again, finally, the Royal Commission was appointed in 1936 by British. Okay, so this commission, now what was mentioned in this commission, what this commission reported, that Palestine would be partitioned into two. The holy places would be under the British and the rest would be added or annexed to Jordan. This proposal was rejected by Arabs, and some of the Jews, they accepted, some rejected this offer or this proposal. But King Hussein, he still wanted not part of Palestine but the whole of Palestine. Then finally, on November 19, 1947, UNO decided to partition Palestine, and the Arabs, they rejected, but the Zionist leaders, they accepted this proposal. So on 1st of August 1948, a state of Israel was formed, and Dr. Chian Weizmann, he became the president, and Prime Minister David Ben-Gurion. Okay, so this way the state of Israel was formed. Then, as soon as the state of Israel, the first Arab Israel war 1948, as soon as the state of Israel was formed, who attacked Israel? Egypt, Jordan and Syria attacked Israel. Though now, looking at the strength of the Arab nations, again Egypt, Syria and Jordan. Looking at this combined forces of Arab, everyone, they expected that Arab would win this war. But what happened? Israelis, though they had less number of armed forces, but they were very skilled and they were very strong. They were able to defeat the Arab forces, and they occupied, they captured Gaza Strip, okay, Gaza, G-A-Z-A Strip, S-T-R-I-P, West Bank of River Jordan, and 1 million Arabs were evicted. They were removed from this zone, okay, from West Bank of River Jordan and Gaza Strip. From this area, 1 million Arabs were removed, and now these Arabs, they became homeless, and they were known as the Palestinian refugees, and they were under the leadership of Yasser Arafat, Y-A-S-S-E-R, Yasser Arafat, A-R-A-F-A-T. And now what they demanded? They wanted back their homeland in Palestine. Okay, so this Arab-Israeli war, now this war, it continued, and UNO declared ceasefire to end the war. But again here, the Arabs, they still continued the war. Okay, and though the Arabs were defeated, but they did not lose hope. Again, they were looking forward for another war. Okay, then next is the Suez Canal issue in 1956. In 1936, Britain and France, they signed a peace, they had signed a treaty. Okay, Britain and especially Britain, they signed a treaty, or let's say they signed an agreement with Egypt in 1936. And this agreement was for 20 years, till 1956. So in 1956, when this treaty came to an end, okay, when this treaty came to an end in 1956, then Britain wanted to renew this treaty. But President Nasser of Egypt, he rejected this renewal of the treaty. Okay, and because of this, what happened? Now this angered Britain, especially Britain, and France. And the conflict started between Britain, France, and on the other side Egypt. Because what Egypt did? Egypt nationalized the Suez Canal. Nationalized means now it was under the government. Before it was private, it was used by Britain, France, other European countries. But now when it was nationalized, now it became government. Okay, and this angered Britain and France attacked Egypt. And who supported Britain and France? Israel. Israel supported Britain and France. And in this war, what happened? Israel, they again occupied the Gaza Strip and destroyed Egyptian military base. But again, with the intervention of UNO and America, the war came to an end. And again, Israel, they were very superior and they were able to defeat the combined forces of Egypt, Israel and Jordan. Okay, and it was great humiliation for Britain because they gained nothing from this war. Then the clauses of the war. What were the clauses? 1 million Arabs, they became homeless. The dispute over River Jordan, okay, this caused tension between Arab and Israel. Again, another tension was regarding the border of Arab and Israel. And the Western countries, they supported Israel, and they were again, the Western countries were totally against Arabs. Mentally, the Arabs, they did not want to accept the fact that Israel, okay, the Jews, now they wanted to, now when Israel was formed, okay, this angered the Arabs, and this Arabs, they never wanted to accept the fact that Israel was formed, and they hated the Jews and regarded Jews as alien in Palestine. And the immediate cause of the war was the border dispute in which President Nasser of Egypt supported Syria. Okay, and the last topic which I am going to do for today is the 6 Days War of 1967. Why it is known as the 6 Days War? Because this war was fought for how many days? For 6 days. So the cause of the war was again when the state of Israel was formed in 1948, then the war, that was the main cause of the war. Now, River Jordan was another cause, because on one side, Israel claimed that River Jordan, okay, wanted to divert the water of River Jordan towards their side, towards Israel, to Negev desert. And on the other side, the Arabs wanted to divert its flow to Lake Galilee. Okay, and this was one of the cause. The next cause, PLO, Palestine Liberation Organization, and Fatah movement. Okay, so this Palestine Liberation Organization, remember 1 million Arabs, they became homeless in the first war. So this 1 million refugees were known as PLO. They formed this Palestine Liberation Organization. So Palestine, they wanted to liberate, they wanted to free Palestine from the Israelis or the Jews. So PLO and Fatah movement, they were against Israel. And next was the Ba'ath Party. They came to power in Israel and they were, Syria, and they were totally against Israel. And taking advantage of the Cold War, Egypt and Syria, they started getting a lot of arms from Russia. And what happened? The event of the war, President Nasser, he took a military stance, and when UN peacekeeping forces was forced, so Egypt forced the UN peacekeeping force to leave Sinai Desert and the Gulf of Aqaba. Now, Mediterranean was also closed, and as a response, Israeli army became activated, and Syria and Jordan also joined Egypt in this Crush Israel campaign. Now, Syria and Jordan, they were on the side of Egypt and wanted to totally crush, wanted to crush Israel, and they came up with Crush Israel campaign. And again, on the other side, Israel, though they had small number of armed forces, they destroyed 2/3 aircraft of Egypt and captured Sinai Peninsula, Gaza Strip, Golan Heights, and this war was fought for 6 days. So all this were done within 6 days. So within 6 days, Israel was able to defeat the combined forces of Syria, Jordan and Egypt. Okay, that's why it is known as the 6 days war. So what was the result? It was a great success for Israel. Okay, and this time the UN order, okay, was ignored by Israel. They did not return back the Sinai Desert, Gaza Strip to Arab or Egypt. And the only problem they had was what to do with this 1 million refugees, okay, the Palestinian refugees. So these people now, they started to live in a camp, refugee camp on West Bank and Gaza Strip. And lastly, the last point, now it was a great humiliation for Arab, because Arab, they were defeated in First War 1948, they were defeated in the Suez Canal issue also, and lastly they were defeated in this 6 days war. So they lost all the wars with Israel. So it was a great humiliation for Arab, especially for President Nasser of Egypt. His prestige was lost like anything. And now President Nasser, he realized that Israelis could not be defeated easily, and to defeat Israel they wanted help from other foreign countries. And it was also clear that sooner or later again Arabs, they will try to liberate, that is, they will try to free Palestine and destroy Israel. But still, though they were defeated in all the wars, though they lost all the wars with Israel, but still the Arabs, they did not lose hope. Again, they were looking for another war to defeat Israel and to free Palestine. Okay, so I am going to stop here, and today we did about the first Arab-Israel, we started with your Sykes-Picot agreement, the Balfour Declaration, the Zionist movement, Balfour Declaration, how the State of Israel was formed, this first war, Arab-Israel War of 1948, Suez Canal issue, and the 6 days war. Okay, thank you.